Salerno. Welcome, Eric, to the show, brother. Eric, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Eric, you're with the Yuba Patient Coalition, correct?
Correct.
I thought it was Yuma for a few minutes, and we had a nice little laugh about why Arizona was so angry. Yuba right now is the last place that has, I guess you would say, the good medical marijuana laws, correct?
Yeah, we had a pretty progressive ordinance up until about 2 weeks ago.
And then, so how would you say your county differs from everybody else? And then what has happened in the last 2 weeks?
Well, the only difference between our county and some of the others is we at least were able to talk to our supervisors at one point and have open dialogue and have somewhat of some common ground, and we tried to work through issues with them. But other than that, we're like every other county up here in the North State that seems to be experiencing outdoor cultivation ban.
And that was an agenda that they just passed. I know personally because I visit Shasta County a lot. That's affecting everybody. That entire town. If you're not a grower in that town, then you pretty much don't live there.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. Is it spread from Shasta, it came down to Butte, and now it's coming over here to Yuba.
Now, are you guys having problems like in Redding? The growers out there are talking about the helicopters that are flying, and they're flying so low over the crops that they're actually destroying them with the wind from the blades.
We've had helicopters come really, really low and scare people's livestock to the point where some of them were like severely injured. But basically what we were told was the feds fly us every year. They fly all the counties, and they kind of keep an eye on what's going on and how many gardens and so on and so forth. Well, the federal government flew us this year and came back and told our sheriff that we were starting to look like Humboldt County.
Woohoo! I mean,
that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is and it isn't.
So what they're saying is from the air, when they're flying over, they're starting to see big green patches of what Humboldt is familiar looking like, which is just a giant weed garden.
Right. And so they're correlating the two, and they're making us look extremely bad. I hate to say it just easy like that, but they're making us look really not so great. And really, it's difficult to now change the supervisors' minds, because what happened is the federal government then came in and said, look, if you don't curb the growing, we're going to cut these funds. We're going to cut matching funds that they have for public programs.
Now, what jurisdiction do they have to do that? Because it sounds like they're just bullying the town.
Exactly. They're basically bullying and blackmailing our supervisors and scaring them, because now Big Brother's come down and said that he's going to do this and he's going to do that. And so they pretty much caved. We had supervisors that they met with us, but only because we called and basically forced our way into a meeting with them. And once they relented, we realized very quickly there was no common ground. They weren't going to work with us like they did the first time. And things had totally just flopped. And they made these excuses that, it's the bad apples in the group. And, we had these reports of people having guns being fired and dogs on the loose. Those things happen, not that they should, but they happen. Whether or not those people are cultivating cannabis remains to be seen. But basically, they just painted us all with the same brush.
So is there a group? Are you guys forming together yet? Is there any kind of unity that you're starting to see in Yuba?
Right, yeah, we did form a group. We formed the Yuba Patients Coalition, and we actually formed a political action committee so that we could legally accept funds. We could report them and then use those funds for political actions like referendums. There's another group that would like to file an initiative, so we're encouraging those types of action. Eventually, we would like to then move forward and recall supervisors, the ones that weren't listening to us, their constituents. They made one comment that really sticks with me, and it was, "We are going to take our county back."
Now, who is part of our?
Exactly, Michael. Who is our? And evidently, we are not
right.
Part of our county.
And let me tell you, too, I personally have seen some of them counties, and I'm trying to play it nice, but when you take the weed people out of that county, there is a demographic that is left behind that county is known for. And I won't throw rocks at them, but they don't sleep. They don't sleep, and teeth is a commodity, especially in Redding from what I've seen. I notice as the growers leave, the harder drug users tend to start zombieing out of the woods.
You know, that's funny that you said that, because we actually took in figures and statistics to the supervisors meeting and said, look, this is how many marijuana complaints you have. These are how many of those marijuana complaints turned into legal action through your district attorney's office. Out of those, these are how many the district attorney actually prosecuted and moved forward with actual criminal cases. Now, let's correlate that with, these are how many drunk drivers you had. Mm-hmm. Same thing. This is how many meth cases that you had. This is how many meth busts you did.
And what was the correlation between the meth cases and the marijuana cases? Are they focused?
That they far exceed them, Michael. That they're making a mountain out of a molehill with the marijuana, and they're basically...
Low-hanging fruit is what they tend to call that, because it's a pretty easy target, and we look great for elections when you start busting out a whole town.
Right. And they're honestly committing political suicide. This county, as you already said, is one of the poorer counties. You know, up here in the North State, we don't have a lot of infrastructure. We don't. Medical marijuana patients give back to the community in many ways. We're unrecognized for that.
Now, how do you fight, Eric? How do you fight? Because especially like Yuba County, which is not a very high population in general, but how do you fight the federal government when they're threatening to pull away funds from the city? I mean, what can you do as an individual or as a group that's going to make that city go, okay, I'd rather listen to you guys and what you're saying over money?
We basically have to turn the tide with our voters here. We have to turn the public perception, and we have to turn the masses, the voters, their constituents, against them. I hate to use it like that, but against them, so that they realize, look.
Well, they're the ones that have put themselves into a group trying to take our town back. So I think they're the ones that started that separation of demographic.
Definitely, absolutely they have. And so that's where we're taking this, is we are going to make the silent majority speak, where we have a really low voter turnout here in Yuba County, extremely low. We only had 12,000 and change vote in this last election. So,
and then what's the actual, give or take, the population of Yuba County?
I really don't have that information here in front of me, but I could definitely get that over to you.
But you know it's more than the 12,000 that showed up to vote.
Definitely. We are known for having low voter turnout. I mean, we have more absentee ballots than we do people who come in. I think we had 8,000 people vote via absentee, and only 6,000 come in. But
what do you think it is it's attributing in Yuba County? Is that just because youth aren't voting, or because if it doesn't say weed on it, people don't come out?
Just because we have a really low-income demographic here. We are, if you go look up Yuba County, we are not the poorest county in the state. We are the poorest county in the nation. Per capita, we have more social services and those types of funds going to our public than any other county in the United States. So we have a really low-income population here, and they don't vote. They don't care. You know, it's really...
They're just giving up on life all in general. When you go about not having nothing, why vote? Because what's going to change?